Hello and welcome. If you're new here, my name is Joe, and I rant about the things that I think we need to do to prepare for the coming effects of climate change. If you've been here before, welcome back. In this video, we are not moving nearly fast enough in preparing for climate change. Now, when I was thinking about the topic for this video, I had prepared an analogy that I'm still going to use, but this was before that condominium collapsed just outside of Miami, which is actually, unfortunately, a better analogy. Well, let me give you the hypothetical one that I had thought of first. So, imagine that you go skydiving, and it comes time to pull open your parachute, and you open the ripcord, and nothing happens, or the parachute comes out tangled. Anything happens other than the parachute opening cleanly and decelerating your plunge towards the ground. So as soon as you realize there's a problem, you have a finite amount of time to fix it. Whatever altitude you're at and wherever the ground is, however fast you're falling towards it, probably about 120 miles an hour, you have until then to figure this out. You can't ask for more time. You can't form a committee and talk about it for a while. You can't think of ways to discount, well, maybe the parachute is really open and we're just looking at it wrong, or maybe everything is fine because we haven't hit the ground yet. There's no time to talk around the problem or deal with anyone who wants to deny the problem. The problem is real, and there is, again, a finite amount of time to fix the problem. Because if you don't, you hit the ground going very fast. So again, the main thing there is the finite amount of time that is available to fix the problem. In the collapse of the condominium outside of Miami, climate change has come up a little bit in terms of a potential cause. That's actually quite misleading and actually dangerous because when you start pointing to potential causes that turn out to be wrong, the next time that potential cause is, well, the potential cause of something else, it gets discounted because it's like, well, yeah, every time this comes up, it turns out not to be that. So, you know what? Let's stop pointing at that as a potential cause of any kinds of problem. So, to say climate change may have caused that building to collapse is wrong. In fact, what we're finding out and why, and then as we're finding these things out, why this turns out to be a good example or analogy for our lack of urgency towards climate change. So the building was built 40 years ago. So this would be in the early 80s, 1981. And in the 1990s, allegedly, the building was discovered to be sinking a couple of millimeters per year. Now that in and of itself is not a bad thing. Buildings do settle. This particular area was, or is, what is called reclaimed wetlands. So basically it's like, take a swamp, fill it with gravel, put buildings on it. There's going to be some settling. It's going to take some while to really compact that down. You really don't know how much the ground can compact until you put, well, for example, a giant building on it. Then it might sink a little bit. Now, when the sinking occurs, as long as it's happening where the building is remaining vertical, it's not sinking like the Leaning Tower of Pisa. It's not sinking in a way where any of the supports give out, or it damages the building or compromises its structural integrity. As long as all those things are okay, a building can sink. The ground can sink a little bit, and a building will be fine. It turns out in this case, though, that there were deeper structural issues identified 3 years ago. In 2018, there was exposed rebar sticking out of the cement, and I'm sure all kinds of other information and videos and pictures from the past will come out soon. But the point is, there was a known problem. And in fact, this past April, it was mentioned again of how, hey, you know this inspection from 2018 that showed that the building is in really bad shape? It's gotten worse since then. And the issue is, well, whose problem is it? If you own a unit in that building, well, guess what? You now are responsible for the entire building. All of the residents are now equally responsible for that building, financially. They can't possibly be responsible for knowing how to determine whether or not a building is structurally sound. They aren't engineers. They're not architects. They don't know how to look at a building and say, oh, that's the problem, or this is how we fix that. Financially, they were on the hook for, I guess, 15 million or so it was going to take to fix up that building. But the thing is, they never got to. They ran out of time, and this is why this is unfortunately a good analogy for climate change. We are running out of time. There's only so much time before we hit the ground. Or in Miami, before that building collapsed, and perhaps others are going to come down too. This is a municipal issue with regards to lack of inspections. If you've ever had a home inspection before buying a house, that home inspector is not an engineer. He or she just goes through and it looks for some very basic telltale signs of, hey, this building is in great shape, or maybe it's not. And even when they say it's great, it's still maybe not, because they don't look at everything. You can't see inside the walls. And more importantly, again, they're not engineers. So I don't know what goes on with these types of inspections in that municipality, but every town is facing those kinds of issues. But it becomes a collective thing where how are all of us equally on the hook for fixing climate change if we're not all equally responsible for causing climate change? I don't own a factory that's sending tons of carbon dioxide into the atmosphere every day. But I do buy things, and I do use electricity. And these are things that come out of buildings that belch massive amounts of carbon dioxide into the atmosphere every day. So we're all, however indirectly, however many points removed away from the actual cause, or the actual furnace, the actual digging up of coal, and then the burning of the coal, whatever. We're all equally. We may not be equally responsible for the causes of climate change, but we're all equally at risk. And we all have to move a lot faster, because more buildings may start to come down, not because of climate change. Where climate change got into the conversation, I believe, was because there was talk of perhaps seawater having infiltrated the foundation of the building. Sea salt can be corrosive because of the salt. And because it was reclaimed wetlands, and it's Florida, and you're near the ocean, what water is going to seep into whatever you've backfilled? Probably ocean water as opposed to fresh water. Regardless of that, the issue isn't climate change. The issue is the lack of building codes that account for climate change. It's the lack of inspections. It's the lack of engineering to take these things into account. You could have the perfect building plans, but a bad builder. You could have the perfect plans and perfect builder, but bad materials. There's the potential for some weak link in the chain, and there's going to be more of these weak links exposed due to climate change over time. So this is something that we all need to step up and look at and demand answers for. Bring in the right expertise, bring in the right amount of resources, and actually take a look at this problem as if it was the most urgent thing happening right now, today. Not next week, not next month, not next year. This is an immediate thing to take on. These goals of, hey, let's cut our carbon dioxide emissions in half by 2030, or we're going to be carbon neutral, or whatever by 2040. I'm seeing companies saying different things like that. There's the Paris Accord with 2030 goals, and these are just not fast enough. There are economic realities that hinder these things, namely capitalism, namely profiteering. Dealing with climate change is going to cost billionaires billions of dollars. And nobody wants to be the first one to go. They're all playing this game of chicken of, if I deal with this first, my company would just be the first one to go under because I became less profitable because I tried to do the right thing. It's the only thing. And we're out of time. So anyway, this video is now out of time. I will end this rant here. So thank you for watching. Please like and subscribe, and I'll see you next time.